Welcome to Advisory Conversations with Tim Seymour and Deb Halliday. This podcast is for accounting professionals and financial coaches who are ready to step beyond compliance and into advisory. Because real advisory isn't about doing more yourself. It's about building something that works without you being the bottleneck.
Hello, Deb, and welcome back again to Advisory Conversations.
Hi there, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good, thanks. Pretty good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, really good.
Good. So we thought today we could have a little chat about a bit of a classic issue that accounting and bookkeeping practice owners come across when delivering advisory. So we're going to discuss about why clients don't take action. And I think we've probably both come across this in our time running our accountancy practices. And, I think it's an obvious thing that for me, they can be overwhelmed with change quite often. And what's your experience of this, Deb, that you've come across so far?
Yeah, there's lots of reasons I've found that clients, you give them a focus, a good idea, and a good change, and you can see the outcome is going to be beneficial. And in the early days, you're kind of surprised if they don't take action. But with experience, you half expect them not to immediately because they have all sorts of things going on, and it's your job to uncover them. And that doesn't necessarily always happen at the point of suggestion. You uncover it down the line. But yeah, there's a multitude of reasons. Fear of change. They're not other things going on. There's different priorities. They can't see the benefit of the outcome. They're not sure it's going to work for them. They might have resistance from a team member. It might not just, they might have other stakeholders that they need to run it past, and that's where it stumbles because they haven't been party to the full conversation. They might think it's extra work that's not necessary to be done. Yeah, lots and lots of reasons for them not taking action.
I think as well that they have a session with you and everything is great and they feel like they've had some great advice and they've got some great actions to go and take. But once they've left that meeting, probably their mobile phone goes off. Probably there's 101 questions they need to answer. There's a client on the call. There's a team member asking the questions. And so many other things take over that what seemed a really good meeting and gave them some great action points is suddenly lost within the whole world of them running their own business and having to firefight situations. And it's a symptom of perhaps how they've set themselves up to run their business, of course, which is something that we can guide them through as their advisors. But it is a reality, isn't it? That, and I would say not only business owners, but I would say practice owners, accounting and bookkeeping practice owners are guilty of this as well, because, what I saw previously was even though you're guiding the practice owners to deliver advisory and to take action in their own business, quite often the same thing would happen. And there's an art to encouraging people to take action. And obviously that comes from holding accountability, in the next session. For us with the membership we were in, we had weekly sessions. So it was quite easy to bring that accountability in the following week. Have you taken action, what we talked about last week? If you haven't, why haven't you? And what can we do to help you make that happen this week? So there's a nice way to kind of open that and to be a bit more direct, but that's because they were learning to be advisors. So you could be a little bit more direct.
Yeah.
A client, on the other hand, is a slightly different scenario, isn't it? Because like we say, they're juggling 101 plates all the time, quite often. And it can be very difficult for them to then regain the focus on what they talked about in the session out in the real world when they're juggling all these plates.
Yeah, I think when we delivered advisory within the accounts ladies, it was a crucial part of the action steps to keep them accountable in between meetings. So we would not just give them an action, but we would give them space in the meeting to open up their own calendar and to look to see when they had space, when they could complete the action. So we get them to put it into their calendar. If it was very hectic and that was penciled in, we would also ask them, is there a second time? So if you can't meet that first, is there a second time that you can pencil in? So they had two options within their calendar before the next meeting to be able to complete the task or the first step. And we wouldn't generally give them more than one because that would overwhelm them. So just having the first step of a process and writing it in the calendar, they take accountability themselves because they've made the decision of when they're going to do it, how long it's going to take. And if it doesn't happen then, it can also happen on another time and date. And we would be in touch with them so they would get a reminder or a nudge to say, how are you getting on with such and such, and see what they came back with. So yeah, it's knowing that it's your role to do that, but it's not your role to force them. It's just to encourage. And if they still don't do it, then the question is, okay, so what's holding you back? Is it actually that you didn't have time? Or is there an underlying reason that maybe you don't think it's going to work for you? It's not the right time for your business. Do you have other priorities? And uncover what's actually going on in the business, and then see where that conversation leads. And maybe that's the next problem to tackle.
Yeah, I can remember when I started delivering advisory and transitioning from the world of compliance into advisory, as you know that I did. I was very keen when I started working with a client in this way and holding what I called strategy sessions, because clients don't know what advisory means. Advisory is a term for us, accounting
Yeah.
and bookkeeping, practice owners, isn't it? But I used to try and get them on weekly meetings initially. Now, that wasn't always going to be weekly meetings because otherwise my time would just be sucked away completely. But I used to try initially when I started working with people was go for weekly meetings for the first month, maybe first 2 months. Then we'll go to monthly when we've got you up and running and we've got like a process going on and the system that we're working to in a way that we both understand each other and how we can, make sure that you're taking action from the steps that we're providing you with. And I made sure that every step that I asked them to take was a very small step. So there was no going away from the meeting thinking, oh my Lord, I've got to do all of this before next week. There was, I've only got to go and do this one thing, and that one thing might be open another bank account. It might be that simple. It could, anything like that. It could be, we talk about a debt snowball quite a lot. So it could be making a list of all the debts. It could be that simple. It was a simple task, but what it meant was they felt when they came to the next meeting that they had done something productive to bring to the next meeting, and then you could then take the next step with them. And I found that worked really well. Of course, there was the odd time when someone would turn up and they hadn't even done the small one step. And then it's a conversation of, okay, so what happened? What happened last week that took your focus away from this? And there'll be a multitude of reasons, and they are all genuine, all sincere, all understandable issues that can happen when you're running the business. But then you take them back to, okay, but what's going to happen if we don't make this step? And you just guide them gently through the idea that if we don't start making this step, we can't take the next step and the next step after. And this step has become like a crucial one small step to make to move forward to the next one. And sometimes if the step's that small, I would do it with them in the next session just to make sure that it's done. Then we can move on to leave them to do the next step, in the following week, if that makes sense. I'm saying a lot of steps, I know. So.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think to remind them of the impending outcome.
Yes.
And then if they're delaying each mini step, then that just pushes the outcome further into the future. So to always close the meeting on reminding them that we can achieve this by this date if this is done within this time period, and then we can move on to the next. and just have that plan in front of them so that they can see how we're going to get there, how we're going to get to that result. Yeah, I think it's vital. You can't just get, even though they're small steps, you can't just get consumed by that particular step. You have to always finish the meeting with the broader view, the more long-term view. We will get you here, because that's the goal. And then they're more fired up, they're more motivated to get that done. It doesn't seem so big of a job, but when they realise that they're all lots of little steps to get them there at the end.
I think as well is probably a reminder of what their priorities are, because by this time you should already know exactly what outcomes they're looking to achieve, and what forecasts we're looking at to get them to achieve those outcomes over a period of time. It could be a sustained long period of time. It could be there could be some shorter goals you're trying to achieve to get to those long-term outcomes. It depends how you break it down. But you should know what the priorities are for your client. And sometimes it's a reminder that because what might happen, and I've had this from experience, and it's difficult sometimes to bring the client back around to actually taking the action that they need to take to deliver the outcomes, because they've been firefighting for the whole week. They come in with a bit of a fluster about why they haven't taken the step they need to take, and they start talking about all the things they've had to deal with, and they're stressed.
Yeah.
And then they can start to ask you questions that actually aren't going to help them move forward. So it's an art to actually reminding them as gently as possible, because you can't be too assertive with clients. Sometimes you can when you need to be, but you're not as a regular occurrence. Is gently reminding them what the priorities were, what you're looking to achieve by working together, and saying, I totally understand where you're coming from. I run a business myself. I know what it's like. The phone rings when you leave this room, and I have to deal with things as well. I get it. But we need to put that to one side just for this minute, and let's just deal with this one step and make sure we touch it. Because remember, you said you wanted to achieve this. And remember, you said you wanted to get to this level by this certain point. Well, we've already delayed by a week, so let's not delay by another week. And I think just gently reminding them and pushing home the priorities and allowing them to remind themselves what they should be prioritizing when they're having this time with you, I think is quite important as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think also you mentioned that recognition and empathy with them, recognizing that they are busy and that as soon as they come off the call, they've got other things that they need to deal with. But if you don't include recognition and empathy, you don't want them to feel like a naughty school child that hasn't done their homework, because you have to recognize and you have to empathize and you have to give them leeway as well, because they're the boss in their own business, and they will cancel meetings with you if they think that they're going to be put in a position where they have to answer for not doing things. And that's the last thing you need, because you're just trying to help. So it is a complete art of balancing the importance of taking the steps and taking action, but in a way that you're talking peer to peer, not adult to child.
Yeah, and it as well, it doesn't hurt them to appreciate or be reminded that you too are a business owner and you do have similar problems, because they look at us as the accountant and they just see the accountant or the bookkeeper. They don't necessarily see the business owner. So it doesn't hurt to remind them. And it's also, by doing that, you are providing empathy, aren't you, with them? You're understanding. You're saying, I totally understand everything you're saying. I have the same problems too.
Yeah, I used to do that all the time. I used to, if they mentioned a situation that they had to firefight, that would trigger something that I've had to deal with at some point in the past. And I'd say, I get it. I had to do something similar, and I let them know how I resolved it. That might be helpful, it might not. But the main thing was to say, completely understand. We have to do these things, don't we?
There's also, I suppose there's also a time when a client might not, during a session, they might not want to take the advice, or they might feel you might receive some resistance to the advice you're giving, which is another reason why perhaps they won't take action on that. Have you had that in the past, and how
Yeah,
have you dealt with that?
yeah, I've had that. Yeah, the main one that comes to mind was client that just refused to put their prices up,
Yeah.
and we it was the solution. You know what they were selling for, what it was costing them was bordering break even with what they were selling for. But not only that, they were giving discounts, which were then putting them at a loss. And that was only in one marketplace they were giving a discount, but it was cancelling out the profit for everything else. And it was like, you're paying for these services, but they got themselves into a situation where they had a market and they were selling. But what they were selling and how much they were selling it for was putting them at a loss, but they didn't think that their market could afford any more. So because they were getting sales, they thought they were being successful, but they didn't realize that they were selling to the wrong market or selling the wrong service to the wrong market. And it was either a case of change your market, which they didn't want to do because they were getting sales from this particular market, but they were at a crisis point where they couldn't lower their costs anymore. So it was costing them money. So we couldn't get through to them that you have to make a decision. They just thought the more they sell, the solution will be in the top line of sales. Well, it won't, because you've got the same cost of sales going out as you've got coming in as a return. There's no profit. So you're just going to be working harder for no money. And they were just highly resistant because they really liked their market. They liked their ideal client. Well, their perceived ideal client, the people that they were selling to. And they felt really good that they were giving them such a good deal. And they were getting a certain amount of satisfaction, pleasure from giving them such a good deal, giving them such a great service at such a good deal, but not realizing it was actually costing them. And why are they coming to us saying, well, we're not making any money? This is why you're not making any money. You need to either put your sales up, or you need to move your market, who you're selling to. Both, really. You need to put your sales up was the end of it. And yeah, they were just highly resistant because they were selling. And it was, well, your business model is not right for you, because either you're going to be a charity, or you're going to be a limited company and try and at least cover your own personal costs. But yeah, you can't do both, I'm afraid. So yeah, that was, and we never resolved it. What do you do in those? But you can't take ownership of that, because exactly the same advice was given to other clients, and they took it on board. They increased their prices. So it's not something that you're personally responsible for. You can only give advice, and it's not for us to push them. It's not for us to. They're business owners. You know that they are the boss. It's their decision. We can only give them advice and suggestions.
Yeah, it's a very important point, actually, because not everybody will take action on everything we advise them to do, because they're just not ready to. And it might be that person might now, later on down the line, have put the prices up and might be looking back to the conversations with you and thinking, I wish I'd have listened all that, to the accounts ladies all those years ago. But because that's what happens, isn't it? People do eventually, when they do take action, they come back to you and they say, yeah, I wish I'd listened to you a year ago and done that thing you told me to do, because now I'm doing it. It's great, but I'm a year behind where I could have been. And they recognize the change that it's created that they could have done. But I think also it's good to hear, in a way, of a client that never took action. you know, because that's the reality of what we do. You know, not 100% of people are going to take action on everything we ask them to do. There's going to be resistance, but it's still around how you continue that relationship with them. But you can always remind them that you still haven't changed your pricing. I know you're not going to, but if you do, that will solve all your problems that you keep mentioning to me.
Yeah.
But,
I
you
mean,
know,
we
the
kept in
onus is on
touch.
you. You know, I could do no more, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We kept in touch. We kept
Yeah.
you know, we still helped. But we stopped charging him for advisory because he wasn't taking action.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, well, we can't put you at a loss even further. So either if this advice isn't working for you until you're ready to put into action our suggestions, then let's put it on pause. Let's put it on hold
Yeah.
until you're ready.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. I wasn't going to charge him for something that he couldn't afford.
Yeah. I think as well, it's knowing your clients. Everybody's different. Everybody who runs a business has a different personality, has a different way of receiving messages and of consuming the information that you're giving them and whether to take on board the advice. Some people, you know, found this in the membership before. Some people are immediately resistant to what you're saying. And then maybe the week after hesitant, and a week after still a little bit negative. And then all of a sudden, a couple of weeks down the line, they've taken action on it and said how wonderful it is. But it takes a little bit of time with certain people to gradually nudge the message home and do it in a subtle but understanding way. So there's that type of personality. There's another personality who is open to everything and actually run before they can walk and try and change everything too quickly.
Yeah.
And you have to pull them back and actually say, do you know what? I don't want you to do this one step. If you try and do 5 steps, you're going to run in circles and you're not going to quite get where you want to go because you're going too fast. So let's slow it down. And that's hard sometimes, but there's all these different characters. And with some people, you need to put, virtually put your arm around their shoulder, give them a hug, tell them everything's going to be okay. And with other people, you actually need to be assertive with, because you get to that point and you say, do you know what? We've had these sessions now for 6 months and we're not really heading towards the targets we've set, the outcomes you want to achieve. If you're not going to take action, there's not much point in us continuing. So what do you want to do? And being a little bit more direct and a little bit more assertive sometimes, it also actually jumps them into taking action because they don't want to lose you. They actually like working with you, and it hasn't dawned on them that they're not actually getting anywhere. They think by coming along and listening to you, they're achieving something, but they're actually just that they're gaining knowledge from you, but they're not taking action. And taking action has to be the crucial factor in this.
Yeah.
Which is obviously is why we're talking about this topic. So, but it's interesting with different personalities, isn't it?
It is. And I think sometimes they can change because I'm remembering that I'm an avid audiobook listener and I would have a whole catalogue of audiobooks that I would suggest when I could see that somebody was struggling with maybe a lack mentality, lack mindset, rather than an abundance mindset. I would suggest certain books to them. So, and I would generally at the beginning when we had like an onboarding session for the advisory services, I would explain that I have a lot of different resources and there might be YouTube videos or there might be audio books and things that I would want them to listen to that would help them move along the task towards the goal because it's where I've learned from. So if we're on the same page and we understand the same strategies, same mindset, then that would help. Some people were reluctant. Some people were welcoming of the additional resources. So, but yeah, I mean, mindset is a big one. And accepting and welcoming change, understanding that uncomfortable feelings are a measure of the growth that you're going through. That's why we call them growing pains, because you're growing to the next stage, the next level. And there is a physical, uncomfortable, tense shift in your body that your body just tries to keep you safe. So it's navigating those as well. So it was a mindset, confidence approach as well. And it is a good gauge of how successful the client's going to be as to how open they are to those kind of suggestions of reading or listening to those or watching those resources, following certain people on social media, etc. But yeah, it's I find it fascinating, and looking to see how people were at the beginning of the journey towards the end. But yeah, it rarely happened with the people that resisted or didn't take action. Rarely happened quickly. It's just a longer journey, but you can't expect everybody to take action when you tell them to do something. It's quite a good gauge as well if you measure how many did, like a metric. How many of your clients are actually taking action by the next meeting? And then you can assess whether that's the type of clients you're offering advisory to, or whether it's your own advisory skills, and measure how well you're doing in relation to how much action your clients are taking. But yeah, choosing the right advisory clients is a must. That's really important, but that's another conversation.
That's another conversation for another day, but it'd make a great topic for this podcast. Well, I think we've covered everything, Deb. I think that was a great conversation, and these are the sort of conversations we have, and we have these not just on the podcast, but we do hold some online sessions every Tuesday at 9:00, every Tuesday morning at 9:00. And they're called Croissants and Coffee because it's a breakfast meeting, and it's just a nice name. And we've been running these on and off for over 4.5 years now. And we brought them back recently. So if you want to come and join us on Croissants and Coffee and have a chat about any of these topics that you hear on Advisory Conversations, and be in a group that is full of your peers, other accounting and bookkeeping practice owners that are, there to be supported and also to offer support around the room, then come and join us. And the way you can come and join us is to head to our Facebook group, which is called Advisory Teams. So you just go into Facebook, search Advisory Teams, and you'll see us there and answer a couple of questions. Click to join, we'll let you in, and then you'll be able to access the Zoom links that you require to join us on Tuesdays at 9:00 on our Croissants and Coffee sessions. And we'd love to see you there. So, Deb, thank you very much for the conversation again today. I love our advisory conversations. It reminds me so much of all the things that we've done in the past, and how we've helped clients, and how we've had times when we haven't been able to help clients, which is the reality of what we do. And yeah, just thanks for joining me, and we'll be ready to do another episode very soon.
We will.
Thanks for listening to Advisory Conversations with Tim Seymour and Deb Halliday. If you found this useful, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next episode. We'll see you next time.